Hello, nature lovers, and welcome to another exciting episode of Environmental Systems and Societies. Today's episode is all about the environmental values system. Okay, to start this off, let's look at this forest. This forest is home to lots of creatures, maybe like this toad, the Wyoming toad. Wyoming toad's an endangered animal, meaning that there's only a limited number of him left. And he's not very big. I mean, he's an inch or two long at most, but he does have an impact on his ecosystem. He eats these bugs and he is food for others. And that process of who's doing the eating cycles nutrients like carbon and nitrogen and phosphorus all through the whole system. So these eggs, if the habitat's just right, some of them will survive and become tadpoles. The rest will become food for other creatures. And those tadpoles will become adult toads. What if you want to build a house there? Is that okay? I mean, if you really think about it, you're the one that has paid for that property, right? You went through all the effort of finding a realtor and finding land and checking it out and then filling out tons of paperwork, getting loans approved, closing on the house, and for the next 30 years, you're going to be the guy driving to work every day to pay this off. This makes this your property. Can't you do what you want with it? Or does the toad have a right to that property as well? I mean, who owns that property? You or the toad? Toad's not going to work. The toad already lived there. So maybe both of you. I don't know. It's kind of a tough question. So let's take it a step further. What if instead of just one house, what if you want to actually build a subdivision? And you take that same area and you mow it down, all the trees gone, and you lay out streets and sewers and electricity and plumbing, and you do landscaping and you build all these houses and you get them sold and you create this community. You know, it's outside the main city, but it's this community where that forest was once there. Now what about the Wyoming toad? I mean, you took away its habitat. Doesn't it deserve a place to live? You know, so it can have the eggs, and the eggs have a chance to become tadpoles. No guarantee, but a chance to become tadpoles. And those tadpoles have a chance to become adult toads. No guarantee, but they have a chance. I mean, does this Wyoming toad have rights of its own? So really the issue is this toad habitat versus human habitat. And the human perspective is that this job or this subdivision is going to provide jobs. It's going to bring in businesses like restaurants and stores, and they're going to provide tax revenue that provides for schools and parks, and ultimately even conservation, which is going to save other animals, maybe including the Wyoming toad or ones like it. And all that's going to be provided because of the tax income from these businesses. So when you look at it that way, should we allow one house or just maybe one development or none at all? Answer depends, you guessed it, on your environmental value system. We're going to discuss what an environmental value system is. So I think now is when you really want to start taking notes. And I would pause it. If you don't get it all, just pause it or go back and listen to it. So what is an environmental value system? Well, it's a worldview that shapes the way an individual or a group looks at environmental issues. Okay? Why is it considered a system? Well, it has inputs and outputs. Inputs can be education or media or culture, and outputs are the evaluations you make with it. And so the inputs are transformed into output. If you're thinking about this as a system, then you have to ask from a TOK standpoint, do you really have a choice? If the inputs are provided to you and you didn't choose those, do you have a choice in your evaluations? And I think that's sort of interesting. Anyway, there's four main designations, which we'll talk about in a minute, but there's three broad categories that those designations fall into. And the first one is ecocentric, and then there's anthropocentric, and then there's technocentric. But these are a spectrum, and not everybody falls neatly into any of these categories, okay? Somebody has parts of this and parts of that, parts of the other, and we mix together to be unique, to have your own environmental value system. You know, but when you think of nature, you probably think of ecocentric people. And these are people that frankly put nature above humans. And a matter of fact, if you go really to one side of this group, they see humans as a problem, as a cancer. But there's many people on the ecocentric side that believe humans can live. They just need to learn their place, if you will. Anthropocentric is more human-centered. It's like, well, we can use nature. Nature is here. It's kind of broken into two camps. A camp that says nature's here for us we're part of nature. It has its own rights, but we can use it responsibly. And the other side says we were given nature and we can use it as needed as long as we take care of it, as long as we're responsible. And we'll talk about those groups more in a few minutes. The final group is technocentric, and technocentric is kind of an interesting group that really doesn't see limits to resources. They see this as something we should use to make our lives better. And if we run into problems, we're smart. We will figure out ways to solve problems like climate change. We will figure out ways to solve problems like the California drought, or water pollution, or air pollution, or overpopulation. They actually see often overpopulation as a good thing, that more minds available to work on a problem. The older I get, the more I see the value of this. We'll talk in more detail about this. So those are your three main broad categories: ecocentric, anthropocentric, and technocentric. Now within that, we're going to break that down into smaller groups. And we'll start with ecocentric, okay? And within that, we have the deep ecologist. And then we'll go to anthropocentric, where we have soft technologist and environmental manager. And then we'll go technocentric guy, or cornucopia. The deep ecologist, we kind of think of the hermit living in the woods, right? But they're not really, I mean, they can be that guy or that gal. But in reality, they're people that are just, they see nature as important. They see themselves as part of nature. They see all of humans as part of nature. I would say, like most of these things, they're broken in different groups. There's people that are saying, we'll work within the system of our culture and our society. And then there's people that are like, no, screw it. We're going to be adversarial, and we're going to put up a fight every step of the way. You know, so John Muir was a famous deep ecologist, and he started the Sierra Club by writing essays to Teddy Roosevelt, and essays that he published in papers that the whole country read back then. And he was really advocating the beauty of the natural wild world. This is him with Teddy Roosevelt at Yosemite, kind of just showing him the glory of it. And a lot of the things he did actually led to like our national park system, right? He also started the Sierra Club, which is politically active to this day. But then there's this other side. Earth First is a great example of this. And these are people that eco-terrorists. They're violent. They have no problem destroying property. They have no problem putting lives at risk to protect the environment. They think that it's that important and that we don't have a right to do what we do to the environment. Mountaintop removal, fine. Let's blow up those bulldozers. That's their point of view. Now, let's look at John Muir again, because he's more typical of an ecocentric person. He was a preservationist. He believes in leaving the land intact. Kind of humans can visit, but it's not theirs to mess with. In contrast is an anthropocentric person named Aldo Leopold, which started as a conservationist, became a preservationist. But Aldo Leopold believed in using the land responsibly, and that if you used it right, it would take care of you as well as itself. And so he very much, I think he fits in the category of soft technologist. A soft technologist is a person that believes that you can take the land, use the land to grow crops, to hunt, to fish, for lumber, to some extent for minerals, as long as you do it in a way that allows it to regenerate itself and take care of itself. And, you know, essentially that's the definition of sustainability, right? And so a soft technologist believes in sustainability because, and this is the important part, because nature has its own inherent rights, independent from man, independent from human beings. That's the big deal. Now, on the flip side of that is the environmental manager. And on the surface, they're very similar. They believe in taking care of nature. This is a classic conservation. You look at the Missouri Department of Conservation, it's going to probably be a lot of environmental managers. These are people that believe you use a resource and you take care of that resource because it was given to you. It either is given to you because we're the smartest species, or is given to you literally by God to use responsibly. And because of that, we have to take care of it so that future generations can also use it. One of my favorite environment guy named Joel Salatin. And Joel Salatin is it, and he's not the perfect definition of environmental manager. He's very much a libertarian, which is not always the case for environmental managers. But he believes in taking care of the land so that it will provide the food that you need to provide. He believes God gave us that land and gave us that methodology to take care of. And if we do it correctly, then we will have it forever. We will have it for our lives and for our children's lives and for their children's lives. And that's really the ethos of an environmental manager, is long-term sustainability. Now, cornucopians are in the technocentric group, and they're very interesting because they believe that resources are infinite. And Julian Simon is a great example of this, along with Esther Bosrup, whom we'll talk about much more later. But Julian Simon believed that we would not run out of resources, because even if we run out of a specific physical resource, we will substitute something else for it. And that the true resource is human ingenuity. And the more humans we have, the more opportunity for that ingenuity to exist. So they would say, use technology, use resources, make humans' lives better. And the more we do that, the better all humans' lives will be. If there's a major problem, then we'll figure out a solution. So which environmental system do you have? Are you a deep ecologist? Are you a soft technologist? Are you an environmental manager? Are you a cornucopian? You probably have a mix of these. So here's a great example. Joel Salatin certainly does put a high value on the land, but he does not put a high value on federal legislation. Matter of fact, he hates it. John Muir, he used society to protect wild places, not to hide from them. He appealed to the federal government, although most deep ecologists don't do that. As we progress through this course, one of the goals is for you to understand what motivates your choices concerning environmental issues. We hope your understanding of environmental values will help you see the motivations of others and make a good dialogue. I'll end where I start. What do you do with the land? Do you protect the Wyoming code with no development, some development, or fully develop the land? So this has been Environmental Value Systems. I hope it was helpful. If you have any questions, let me know in class. Otherwise, peace out, homies. Giant Xenia.